Hi there. My name is Vikas Maheshwari, and I'm a global HR practitioner with about 24 years of experience in partnering with business leaders to achieve business excellence and drive change and transformation initiatives. Now, before we talk about HR transformation, I believe it is important for us to understand that why HR transformation is ever needed in any organization. Uh, I believe you should be thinking about transformation people practices for the following two reasons. The operating model of your business, let's say, is going through a change. Now, picking an example from retail, let's say from brick and mortar stores, you're moving into a omni-channel way of doing business. In other words, the lines between the physical and the online world are getting blurred. Second, more simple reason is about evolution and improvement. In other words, you're thinking about bringing about practices in play which increase the value of your function, the value that your function adds to your business. Bottom line is, whether it is for reason one or reason two, you have and always will be involved in HR transformation in one way or the other. As per a EY statistic, HR professionals spend about 80% of their time on admin work within HR. Now, let's just say that with the right HR practices in play, we could liberate HR to deliver new people services to the workforce. So for the next minute or so, I'm going to share with you a 5 swim lane approach to drive people transformation. Mind you, I'm calling these not steps, but swim lanes because they all run parallel to each other. Now, this approach has worked for me when I was leading HR transformation for two very large enterprises with footprints across multiple geographies. So the 5 swim lanes, which I will talk about to run successful digital transformation are as follows. The first swim lane that we need to swim on is about laying the foundation. Now, this is all about, how do you break mindsets and overcome barriers? And then most importantly, how do you define what success would look like? And a lot of organizations really do not focus much here. And I'm talking about mindset issues where people look at HR transformation all about technology, which to my mind, it is not so. HR transformation is all about people, the practices that you have, reforming those practices, looking at bringing in technology to support. So it's about tooling up. But a lot of work has to go around handling mindsets. Now, how do you do this? Some of the tactical initiatives that you could consider implementing is, let's start with assessment. Okay. And when I say assessment, this is about capability mapping, both at the organization level and at the unit or the employee level. Now, there are multiple tools available to conduct digital capability mapping. Maybe you have your own assessments in place, but the idea is to show the mirror. The idea is to tell the leadership that why is there a need to relook at your practices? And while you're doing that, do not drop the ball on defining your KPIs, or rather redefining your KPIs. It's a well-known fact that we're still dealing with archaic and age-old KPIs which go and sit in our performance code sheets. It's important to relook at the digital KPIs being inserted, which are directly connected to business. And while we're doing that, the right rewards, the right WIFM has to be created. Also think about building partnerships. When I say partnerships, this is about how do you want to involve the other departments? So transformation in HR cannot be done in isolation by HR reps. It has to involve legal, it has to involve business, it has to involve almost all the departments. And very importantly, even marketing and internal communication and so on and so forth. So to establish those partnerships, help them understand that what is it that you're trying to do? What does success look like? What are the challenges that you anticipate and how you're going to handle them? And then create a resource plan, which could be, let's say, a Kickstarter plan for a year one, moving on to year two, year three, so on and so forth. But having done this, you would be able to move forward in the whole journey very well. The second swim lane that you need to swim on is about engagement. And when I say engagement, it's about engaging first and foremost with the leadership. Now, I'll give you a quick snippet, or rather a story. I was leading HR transformation for a large enterprise. And I met the CEO, and when I spoke to the CEO about what exactly HR transformation is all about, what are the kind of initiatives that we need to take into account, and what would this lead us to? There was a lot of buy-in, there was a lot of agreements, but then I saw actual behaviors different to the actions. Now, I saw the same CEO and some other leaders walking into meetings with paper handouts of a presentation. In other words, you had a presentation which was displaying on the monitor, and the same presentation was also made available to every participant as a paper handout. When I called out and I said, hey, listen, I mean, one side we're talking about transformation and looking at adopting digital, and then here we're still believing in, so much paperwork for something which is available. So they said that, well, you know what, it's easy. I said, this is exactly what we need to get out of. We need to get out of the comfort zone. And when you talk about leadership engagement, it is not a one-time initiative. It is not about, going and making a presentation to the leadership team saying that, okay, well, this is what we're going to be running as a transformation program. It's about non-stop engagement. The second piece on engagement is about internal communication, and this kind of blends into the whole change management program that you'd be running. It is very important for everybody in the organization to know that why is there a change being brought about. Why would you, let's suppose, you wanted to get rid of bell curves. Let's suppose you're going to say that, listen, next year there's going to be no increment, and the reviews would be, continuous, and your appraisals are going to happen, more from the market salaries and not really because we have a quota or a bell curve in place. Very radical thought. However, to make this, or to actually implement this, you need to do a lot of internal communication. You need to get into, active communication with your employees, helping them understand the reasons behind this and what's in it for them. And then to kind of, foster this whole spirit of digital, making people understand how digital supports their functions. You could also think of having regular digital HR, digital conferences being done at all levels, whether it's business, it's HR, or any other. So you need to think of how do you engage people, how do you communicate the message to people, help them understand that what you are trying to do and how this helps them. The third swim lane is about empowerment, and it's a no-brainer. You need to look at empowering your own teams, which is your HR team, and also the teams externally, or the other units. Now, when you talk about empowerment, I think let's start from not the LMS and not what training programs do we have, so on and so forth. But let's start from what are the key competencies that you're looking at building up, and digital competencies might be slightly different from, let's say, the traditional ones. And there has to be a complete, reasoning behind why a certain competency is being looked at. So maybe a good time to go back to things like job evaluation, in the modern context. And while you're doing that, also look at things like knowledge management. And that's one of the big problems that a lot of organizations face today, that they do not have a knowledge repository, due to which a lot of knowledge moves out of the organization as and when somebody moves on. And then the new person comes in and has to build everything from scratch. And I'm not just saying knowledge, I'm also saying, let's say, things like policies, let's say things like agreements, and so on, so forth. So it's important that let's look at a knowledge management tool as well that will lay the foundation for the future. Learning has to be relooked at. And now, when I say learning, yes, I still believe in the 70-20-10 approach. But at the same time, let's think of, better learning experiences for our employees. Can we think of things like in the moment learning? So let's suppose there is an outbound call center that we've got, and somebody needs to make a call from a B2B perspective to a client. Would it be a good idea to share a 30-second or a 1-minute kind of a quick video just before the call has to begin? Something that goes, as a notification to the mobile or whatever device the employee uses, has a look at that 30-second video, understands what are the key messages that need to be delivered in this call, and then moves forward. So that's an example of in-the-time learning. And a lot of organizations have moved on from the traditional LMS to LXPs. And I think that's a good investment to make. Another initiative that you could consider, and this is basically a lift from the technology or the IT industry, is about HR hackathons. It's a great initiative to, again, talking about empowerment of our own teams. It's a great initiative where we have large HR teams, spread across geographies. So how do you look at engaging them and give them some problem statements, and you'd be surprised with the kind of solutions that they would come back with. More on this is available all over the public domain, but HR hackathons is something that has worked very well for me. Now, moving on to the fourth swim lane, which is about laying the framework. And this is where I think the rubber meets the road, because this is where you actually lay the whole architecture for the HR transformation journey. I think one of the first initiatives that you need to pick up now in this swim lane is about laying out the employee experience journey mapping. Now, I'm sure if you've interacted a lot with marketing professionals around you, you would have seen that they go on and make these customer journey maps, which gives them an indication that if a customer was to engage with that product or with the brand, which are the multiple touch points that the customer is engaging on, what is the behavior like, and actually they start from something as basic as defining customer personas. Now, the similar practice can be adopted to HR practices, and I think it's about time that we start looking at mapping the employee journey maps. Saying that, okay, starting from engagement with the recruitment team, or even before that, engagement with the brand, with the job boards, etc. Starting from there, all the way to let's say onboarding, all the way to performance management, all the way to learning and development, and subsequently exit. How does the person engage, or how does the employee engage with us, and what are the experiences, what are the behavior sets, and also look at drawing the employee personas. Now, interestingly, what happens is that at the end of all of this, you come up with a lot of interesting revelations, which could lead to some actions that you have not been able to take in the past, but you've always known that these are needed. And with the journey maps, I think you basically creating an evidence of sorts to go and speak to your leaders and help them kind of agree to your initiatives. Journey maps is in itself a huge subject, and maybe we can take this off some other time, but do read about it, that how is it that HR practitioners are looking at creating their journey maps. And then about agile, again, everybody talks about it, very, very popular in the IT world. But I think a lot of organizations have been successful to implement agile way of working in non-tech setups as well. And when I say agile way of working, I'm not just referring to the tribes, the chapters, the squads, and the guilds. I'm also saying that how can you look at continuous performance management? How can you look at goals which are rapidly changing in everyday's scenario? So how do you adopt that ambiguity? How do you adopt that change, the speed of change, into your performance management system? That's also about being agile. How does your decision making become agile? I was leading transformation program for an organization where to get a 1,000 rupee voucher cleared, there had to be some 7 signatures, and that's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's important that we relook at how decision making is done in an organization and make it more agile. So it's about speed, it's about the way of working, and definitely it's about thinking roadmaps and thinking Scrum as a way forward. Design thinking, I think, is something that we need to adopt. There is a lot of benefit. There are organizations which swear by it, saying that, well, ever since they looked at moving on a design thinking philosophy, people have become smarter, output has increased, so on and so forth. And as a subset of that, to drive that, you could also look at setting up an innovation lab within the organization. So there are tons of initiatives here, but I think even if you could just start with the journey maps and then move on to things like HR, I think a lot would have been achieved. Finally, last but not least, do not drop the ball on control and governance. A lot of what I just said could be a single person or a few people's initiatives and would probably go with them. But with the right kind of control and governance, you will ensure that there is sustainability, there's consistency, and the program runs and always evolves. More importantly, also from a information strategy point of view, from policy training point of view, from roles and responsibilities point of view, it's important that you think about the right kind of RACI charts, the right kind of project roadmaps, and also think about things like certification. Who do you need to certify to do what, and then move forward. So that's the 5 swim lane approach. I know I have been extremely fast. I know there are a lot of important snippets here that I've had to move forward with, but understand that this is a quick one. This is more like the Twitter version of a very powerful and a very elaborate subject. But I'll just kind of wind off by saying that when you think of HR transformation, do not escape things like collaboration with the other departments. I think that's very, very critical. HR transformation is not the HR functions job alone. It has to involve all the other departments, and they all need to own it up in some way or the other. Think about establishing centers of excellence, COEs, and run the entire program through them. And more importantly, make your HR teams think like a product manager. And I think you'll be surprised that if that product management skill sets can be imbibed by the HR teams, the productivity and how they can contribute to the entire HR transformation journey would be absolutely brilliant. So that's it from my side, and I hope you have been able to gather some insights here. And in case you want to do further conversations and want to talk more about the topic, would absolutely love to hear back from you. I think this video goes on LinkedIn, and then you can always reach out to me. And a big thanks to the peopleHum team. I think you guys are doing an incredible job. These 2-minute snippets, they can be great stimulators, for people. It's like a food for thought, and then of course further interactions could happen. But I congratulate you on this initiative. So thank you so much.